Okay, this is a special recording for my good friend Arnav, who's very. Huh? Oops. Take two. Sorry, Anbe. All right. This is an explanation of how the modes work in the example code inside the ATM GUI. So it's pretty simple. At the very start of my code, I have three variables: number buttons enabled, menu buttons enabled, and hide input numbers. Hide input numbers is just if I'm typing in a PIN, I would set it to true, and then it gives you the stars on the screen, so don't worry about those for now. Essentially, whenever I start off, I set them to menu buttons enabled as false, and number buttons enabled as true because they're entering their PIN number. But normally, in a normal situation, what's going to happen is I've got two different modes. I've got menu buttons mode. In menu buttons mode, you can see that the menu buttons are enabled. The input label, what you type in, your numbers thing, where you type in the middle of the screen is disabled, is invisible. The button for balance, withdraw, deposit, statement, etc., those are all visible. Because the whole idea of this mode is that you're choosing from the menu, which are those 6 buttons down the left and right hand side. The other one is number buttons mode, in which all of those menu buttons are disabled and not visible, and all of the other stuff is visible and the numbers are enabled. Okay? Now, I started off by making them invisible, but that just looked awful because in a real ATM, the buttons don't magically disappear, do they? You press them and they just don't do anything. So what I decided to do was have a variable, which is, are the number buttons disabled? It'll still therefore allow you to press the buttons because they're still physically there, but inside the code behind that, it'll ignore that. So it will be inside an if statement. Get the idea? So I'm trying to simulate a real ATM. So whenever I start off, everything basically happens on the enter button, because the enter button is the key to everything. If you think about it, I choose a menu option first of all, and then I type in an amount, and then I finish it off by hitting enter. And that's when I have to make all the important decisions. So most of the code is off the button action and enter action performed. And I have a variable which I've nicely called what is being input. Can you guess what that contains? I set it every time they press a menu button at the very top. I'll just show you in the design. So for example, if they go to balance, if they click on balance, then inside that it sets the variable what is being input equal to balance. And if they click on withdraw, it sets the variable what is being input to withdraw. And then later on, when they do type in the amount of money and they press the enter button, the first thing it says is if what is being input is statement, then do this. If what is being input is PIN, then do this, etc. Now, these modes that I was talking about earlier on, the first mode where these are all enabled and these labels, these green labels, are visible, that's menu mode. At that time, I can press the input buttons, the number buttons, but nothing happens because the variable input numbers enabled, or whatever it's called, is false. The second mode, these labels disappear, these buttons do nothing, and the number buttons are enabled along with enter, clear, and cancel. Now, my suggestion for writing this code to make it easier on yourself is to just do it once. For example, I have a function here called menu buttons mode. I made that one first of all. I enabled the labels so you could see the little green and black labels. I set, that's them there. I set the other things to visible and enabled. And then what I did was I made a copy of that function. I pasted it down here and I changed the falses and trues. So I've got 3 modes: menu buttons mode, message display mode, which I'll explain in a second, and number buttons mode. So number buttons means you can type in a number and enter and clear and cancel. Menu means you can press one of the 6 buttons up and down the left hand side. Display mode means I'm showing people the bank statement or a couple of other things. So therefore nothing else is enabled at all. They can only press enter if it fills up the screen. So say they've got 20 transactions, it'll draw the first 10 on there and then it'll say press enter, and then it'll, etc. So it's a bit of a strange mode. You might not even want that in yours. I just threw it in as an extra. Now when I initially start off my ATM, probably not the best place to start for you, but I started off in pin mode. But I mean, if you're just beginning this, I'd start off a normal one, which is starting it off in menu mode. So I'd write the menu mode function first, and along with it, I would write the number buttons function, and I would start off your ATM. So in the constructor here, you would set it automatically to menu buttons straight away. I just had that commented, but that's what I would start it off as. Okay? Any idea why I had that commented? Okay, what is when I start off my ATM, what does it do? It asks for a PIN number, doesn't it? So therefore I commented that out because it's automatically in PIN mode. So 3 modes, 2 if you want to, and start it off in the appropriate mode. And when they press a menu button, for example, one of these menu buttons here, which is withdraw, first thing you'll ask is if the menu buttons are enabled. Set what's being input, and then display here's your balance. That's the balance one. If it's withdraw, that is middle left. Set what's being input to withdraw. Set hide number buttons to false. Number buttons mode. So I'm changing it from the menu button mode to number button mode. When I'm in number button mode and I've typed in how much I want to withdraw and I press enter, then I'm going to change it back to menu button mode again. Because after you've taken your money out, it goes back to the menu. Yeah. Okay, that sample code is there. Have a look through it. And if there's anything you don't understand, let me know. I know other people do it slightly different ways. Maybe there are better ways of doing it, but this is the simplest one that I could think of right now.